Oh, dang, I forgot what I was going to say now.
Have another drink of beer.
Hey, there you go. A little reminder. No, so I never got on a ticket, but that's what I was. Hey, it worked. I remember. Hey, welcome back to Too Hard, Too Fast, the podcast where we try to broaden perspectives, all while going off the rails. In today's episode, we have, you probably recognize him if you're binge watching Netflix. This is the retired lieutenant. In the documentary, they introduce him as Detective Gil Carrillo. I told you I was going to mess it up.
No, you didn't mess it up. Sounds good, brother. Sounds good.
Gil Carrillo. He is the detective that one of the detectives that is credited with capturing the Night Stalker, Rick Ramirez, the serial killer in the 80s. And I would say, after watching the documentary, that he was really the key to identifying that one clue that really linked it back to identifying the serial killer Rick Ramirez. We're gonna get into that. We're not gonna go to specifics into the documentary because if you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. It is super good. I really enjoyed it. But without further ado, I don't know why I even said that. That's not even a word I say. Well, let's sit back, buckle up. Let's go too hard, too fast. Boom.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
Welcome back
to Too Hard,
Too Fast.
Anything that rolls downhill, man.
I mean, old habits die hard, right?
It's the podcast by the people, for the people.
Well, I'm going too hard, too fast.
We are double fisted on that ass.
Only here, too hard, too fast. Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Too Hard, Too Fast. I'm Gil Carrillo, and I was just fortunate enough to be invited to be a guest on this show. And there's nothing to this too hard, too fast. You can never be hard enough, so it's not too hard. You could be semi-flaccid, and that would be worse. So just too hard. And slow it down, brother. It's all good, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I love all you. God bless you.
Low and smooth, baby.
So welcome everyone to Too Hard, Too Fast podcast.
That's right. Where we go off the rails, and George has to worry about it. So here we go.
For the podcast of the century.
Cheers.
Oh, Gil, thank you for doing this. I told you I was gonna mess up your intro.
Not a problem, brother. It's an honor and a pleasure just to be invited to be a part of your podcast. It does my heart some good. Makes me feel like I'm still appreciated or still wanted or just somebody to kick around in my waning years.
No, man. I mean, like I said, we talked on the phone a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, and I told you, and I had to be honest because I didn't want to start off at all being like you know how like they do in California, they blow a lot of smoke, to make you. But I wanted to be honest. I want to say, hey, I learned about you through somebody else, and I don't keep up with like serial killer stuff. Like it's not my thing. Like I don't like. I have two friends right now that are pretty much angry that I did not have them guest co-host because they're super fans of like true crime stuff. And so they were like, "No way, you have Gil Carrillo." I was like, "Yeah, man, like he's coming on." But anyways, like I was saying, it's I came in to find out through another person that I interviewed, and then I saw that they interviewed George Lopez, and George Lopez was talking highly about you, and I was like, "Well, we all know who George Lopez is, but I need to figure out who Gil Carrillo that he is talking highly about." And I went into research, and I was like, "Man, I gotta reach out and see if he wants to do it." And so I'm glad that you did. And I watched the documentary, and even more so, being brown, like I told you, Hispanic, it's great to see somebody that, providing a service to the whole community, but then, you're being held in a high regard, at least in my
thank you. Thank you very much. when that whole documentary thing started, the thing behind it was I was approached by a family friend. He was a former police officer, former deputy sheriff, and he got injured on duty. He had to retire, and he became a writer. He was writing for the program Chicago PD, and he was writing for them. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm really tired. If you look at movies, if you look at television, there are no Latino heroes. All Latino portrayed movies are either killers, drugsters, thugs, robbers. You don't have a positive role model." He says, "I'm kicking around with another writer." He says, "I wanted to find something positive in a Latino." He says, "And I keep coming back to you." So that was the genesis behind it. And unfortunately, once everything got to roll, he couldn't even be a part of it. Even though he's a writer, he couldn't be a part of it because he would working with Chicago PD, and then he left Chicago PD and he became a writer for the Mayans, MC. And he was under contract, so he couldn't leave there. And so his partner that hooked up with me at first, we had gone out to dinner and they threw some idea, we want to do this. And I told him, quite honestly, I don't give two shits about television. And it's not about the money. I'm retired now and I'll never be rich. I'm comfortable. And this all sounds well and good, but I've been approached before by many people that want to do something, and that's what they do, I guess, in the business. Everybody has an idea, they write it up, and then they got to go sell it. They got to go pitch it to the networks. They all get turned down, so we got nothing. And I won't sign contracts until it's all ready to rock and roll. And so the first guy, next day, my friend called me up and he says, "Hey, that writer, man, he was all turned on. You really excited him. He was good." And I said, "Well, good for him." I told my wife last night, "Hey, I got me a good steak. I got me some wine, made a new friend. That's all that matters. If this never happens, it does well." Next thing I know, about a year and a half later, the same guy wants me to go out and have dinner with him, with a director now. And so I went and met him for dinner. We talked, and that guy was all jazzed. And he says, "I'd like to do this. Would you go along?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, I'll have my attorney." So I said, "You don't have to get an attorney. I don't need to sign a contract. I'll shake my hand with you." And that's good enough to get this project rolling. And you have my word. I'll talk to nobody. I won't give up any information. It's you and me, brother. Let's roll. And because he said he wanted to do it. And that's what started it, and was all, he liked the idea of a young Hispanic, and this guy's white, Tiller Russell, great, nice guy. And he said, "I like the idea, a young Latino, nobody believes in him. It's his theory. This is what he wants." And that's the way it really was. And in the end, we come out ahead. We're victors because we captured him. He was arrested and he was prosecuted successfully. So it was all good. And so many people said, "Why are you doing this? It's so old. Other people have done stuff for documentaries." And I said, "Hey, it's not my money. It's their money. Let them do whatever they want." And it came out to be not because I was part of it, not because it was my case, but Netflix had, for the first time in Netflix history, a documentary that went to #1 within a week and held the #1 trending position for a week. And then it went to #6 in the world. So somebody liked it, somebody watched it. And as a result, when you were saying in the beginning there that your friends are into that true crime and they wanted to be co-hosts, well, George Lopez, the Mexican comedian actor, he's into true crime. And I didn't know this. I didn't know about it. I had paid to go see George at least 4 or 5 times. And all of a sudden, a friend of mine calls me up and says, "Hey, I just heard on the radio, George Lopez says, anybody know Gil Carrillo? Have him give me a call. Here's a number. I want to get in touch with him." So I called, left a message. We finally made contact. He wanted me to go golfing with him. And we talked for 35, 45 minutes the first time. I said, "Well, I don't golf." And he says, "All right. Well, how about coming down and having a beer?" I said, "Well, I can have a beer. That I can do." He said, "Well, come on down with a couple of friends and have some beer with me and my buddies." So I went down there, and the place turned out to be right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, a studio. It's a nondescript building, block walls, no writing on them. And I go in there, and it's the studio. And I said, well, where do I sit? He says, right there in front of the mic. So I just sat up there. There's an empty chair. And I had no idea what was happening. And I mean, and they don't say quiet on the set. They don't say nothing. You just sit there and bullshit. And that's what we did. And the show was a success. That first one was a success. His viewership went way up. It was so much fun for me. And as it turned out, as time went on, George and I have become friends. He's a nice guy. So many people thought he was anti-police, and yet here I am now. He calls me his co-host, and I was a cop for 38 years. So what does that say about him hating police? He doesn't. Yeah. And he's just a real nice guy. And he's taken me, I guess you could say he's taken me under his wing. He lets me ride his coattails, and it's fun for me. I just like to laugh. Laugh heals the heart, so. And before I go any further, by the way, cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
When I'm on with George, we drink his beer, but he's not around, so I'm drinking my wine. And all my glasses are printed. It says Casa Carrillo, vino con amigos. So here's to you.
Cheers. Now, usually my first question is, what are you drinking? But I don't want to lose the touch on the police thing. Since you being a police officer, one of the first people I called right after I got off the phone with you, and we confirmed that we were going to do this, was my dad, because he's a retired police officer. So
thank him for his service.
Well, thank you, and yes, thank him. And I don't know, it was kind of like it reminds me now that I'm thinking about it. In the documentary, it was wanting your dad's approval or being proud of you.
I wanted to make my dad proud. I wanted him to be proud of his son.
Yeah, so that was kind of the same thing, but I was like, if he's watching right now, sorry, Dad, this is gonna go off the rails real quick. No, he likes that kind of nonsense. He knows he likes to have fun. But yeah, that's the first person I called. And it's like, hey, I know you know about this being a police officer. I'm gonna have a chance to talk to him. And he was like, oh shit, no way. So
that's cool. I'm glad I got his approval.
well, I'm glad you have it. Hopefully I have it. Gil, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking this one is Clos de Bois. It's Cabernet Sauvignon wine. That's about all I drink these days. I drink Clos de Bois, Joe Gott, and a couple of others that I drink, but it's primarily wine. I used to drink nothing but hard stuff. Matter of fact, during the Night Stalker case, I can tell you right now, I was drinking Jose Cuervo Gold. Oh, and that's all I was drinking. But I had to stop drinking that because the realities are we were working so hard and so long. And the only place my partner and I could get together and, brainstorm by ourselves, because when you're in the office, or guys are coming up around you with their ideas and what they want to do, and, what do you got? And when you're out in the field working, well, then you're interviewing, you're talking, So the only place we could get a chance by ourselves was every once in a while we'd be able to go to a bar, and we can't get drunk. We wouldn't get really drunk because we were exhausted, we were tired. The captain is quoted in the big paper out here saying we were working 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so we'd stop by at a bar and have me a couple of shots of tequila and then vámonos. I got to go home. We'd talk, take notes on bar napkins, and then we'd go home. Well, I'd come home and the wife, she'd say late night, and I'd say, yeah, another late night. And she smells like you've been drinking. Right, late night. Well, if you have
they
one
can
tequila,
step that out real quick.
Yeah, if you have one tequila, you may as well have a dozen of them because it gives you breath of a buffalo's ass. Cuervo Gold does anyway, so it's easy to smell. So I'm drinking that rum. I was drinking vodka, drink anything I could get my hands on at the time, and then I eventually just stopped. I've never been a big beer drinker, and the only time I drink beer really is with George. I like the stuff he puts out. But other than that, it's always been the guy that broke me in at homicide got me turned on to wine, and that's all I drink now.
Nice. So I'm gonna ask you to rate it. But last time I did this, the guest told me that I should do it first because then they look like idiots at best trying to do my rating scale. So I'll do it first that way because there's no way I want to make you look anything less than the Gil Carrillo. So
Yeah,
oh, if it gets to that point later on the podcast of this episode, then cool. But right now, I'll save you this part. So I'm drinking this 90-minute Imperial IPA from Dogfish Head. I think I don't know where it's from. I don't know if it's Texas or not, but I grabbed it because of this, because it looked cool. That's the only reason. And I was looking to see if I could get like that George Lopez beer that we talked about, see if there was a way to get it shipped out or if some Mexican store here had it. Could not find it. Hopefully it does get around to San Antonio somehow because I would love to taste it. But I got this for that design. It's an IPA, so it's like 9% alcohol. My brother told me it's going to put me on my ass, so we'll see. But the flavor is good, and the price was actually very decent for being a 16-ouncer and being this high on the alcohol percentage. So based on taste, alcohol percentage, and the design, I would give it a 1.72. It's also kind of light feeling, like it's not gonna make me feel heavy, even though I am a heavy guy.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what a much older, wiser man would say. Today, I am drinking Clos de Bois. It's Cabernet Sauvignon. It is from California. It's from the Alexander Valley up in Sonoma County. Good wine area up there. And it's a bottle of wine. But the realities are, I don't give a shit what the labels say, the content says. To me, the wine is good. I don't care what it is, and I've never tasted. I've tasted maybe a 1, but once you start drinking this stuff, I haven't tasted below a 2. They're all good, brother. They're all good. And see, when you're this old, hey, just keep it coming.
Just keep it coming. Everything turns into
I don't even have to worry about ice because you drink this at room temperature, so I don't have to worry about keeping it cold. Nothing fancy about me. I don't even care if your patas were clean when they were smashing the grapes. It all tastes good going down, and it all comes out clean. So I don't care.
Hey, I'll drink to that. That is very true. Yes, this one is a little bit cold, but by the time I get to this one, it's probably gonna be warm. So we'll see what the flavored thing tastes like.
When I do the show with George, it's always a minimal 2-beer show. It's a 2-beer show most of the time, unless we're really into something good. Then we'll pop that 3rd beer. But most of the time, it's 2-beer show.
Nice.
That's good stuff.
That's why I grabbed it. I was like, let's make this a 2-beer show. I remembered when we were on the phone. I was like, he said 2-beer show. Let's try to make it a 2-beer show.
Yeah, and not to worry. This bottle was open. I have this special thing that keeps the oxygen out, so nice and fresh. But I've got plenty of bottles where this one came from in my wine rack. Matter of fact, I think, behind my head over here, I got that's one wine rack. That's one wine rack, but I got another wine rack back by my bar. That was fully stocked.
That's what we call in the community, ay muy muy. But I like that oxygen thing. I'd never seen that before. Like I always do that. Love me, like trying to push it back in.
No, you get this thing, and what it does is it sucks out all the oxygen in there, which ruins the wine. It just sucks it all out and pull it out, and you can see. Let me put this. Now you see those lights going on? It's sucking the oxygen out right now. Makes a little humming sound. That's because there's not much wine left in there. We'll finish this one off and pop another one before the show's over. Trust me.
Nice. I like that. I need to give me one of those, but my wife always says, I don't know why you even bother dirtying a glass. Just drink it straight out of the bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just in Chicago earlier. Let's see, we're in July. Okay. Last month, I was in Chicago and I met I went back there to do some speaking. It was a fundraising event for wounded veterans and surviving family members of cops killed in the line of duty. So I went back there, made some friends, great people from Chicago. I can't stop talking about the cops back there. And met one guy that sent me home with a mason jar. It's like a jar of mayonnaise of homemade moonshine.
Oh, man.
And the stuff was good. And it didn't taste like, I think of moonshine, I've tasted it before, and that's nasty, rough stuff, man. You could drink it or get it and rub it on your elbow. It's cure-all. And this stuff was smooth, tasted like apple, so like an apple martini. And it was even my wine, who's a non-drinker, I said, taste it, come on, just one little cachito. She tasted, this ain't bad. She didn't have any more, but at least she tasted it. Well, I just got 2 more bottles sent back to me. They sent 2 more jars last week. And I took one to a 4th of July little barbecue of my wife's primo side of the family. We were down there, and one youngster said, "Oh, man, this is bad." And they kept egging him on. And I just kept laughing. I said, "Toma, mijo, go ahead, have some more. And my daughter was making me, "Hey, go ahead and drink. Your wife's not here. Nobody's going to get in trouble." And his dad is a good friend of mine, and his dad was there. And his dad hasn't touched the drop in 30 years. And his dad used to be a heavy partier, and I'm just laughing at him. And his dad's going, "Ay, Gil." I said, "Well, shit, I haven't stopped drinking." Got to get there. Before you know it, the guy was puking all over the place. And I'm just laughing. I'm laughing. It was funny. I mean, he wasn't going to drive. We had somebody take care of him. We just washed him up. I'm saying, "Toma más, cabrón. You can do this."
Yeah. Dude, okay, so I've never had like true homemade moonshine, like the stuff that people make on their own. Like I've had it, the ones that they sell at the store, things like that. But there was one that I had for my birthday years ago, and it kind of reminds me of that. This one guy brought it, and it was moonshine, strawberry moonshine. So there was strawberries in the moonshine. And one of my friends, all he ate was the strawberries. He goes, "No, he's all good. That's all I'm going to have." He didn't even make it to the bar. Like he entered, paid his cover, and as soon as he walked in, had to be kicked out. He got kicked out walking in. And so he ended up back at the hotel, throw up everywhere from what I was told. I was like, "It's my birthday. I'm staying and hanging out." But yeah, he ended up like hotel, throwing up, getting washed all over the. Yeah, he had a rough night, and all he ate was the strawberries. So I can imagine.
Oh, it's good. It's all worth fun. And the guy is not the kid that I'm talking about. I mean, he's not a 21-year-old kid. This guy's in his late 40s, but he wanted to macho up and be a man. And I kept poking sticks at him. "Don't be afraid, mijo. You can do this. Come on, you can hang with the big boys." And I watched him fall down. And when everybody's laughing at him because he puked, I said, "I got your bag, mijo. Let these other guys, they didn't drink any. They're all a bunch of wusses. They didn't care. Hey, you're a man. Proud."
That's what's up. And then you take care of them. That's what it's like. You gotta watch out for him. And like you said, he wasn't driving. Puro pinche party. Why not?
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Let me ask you before I forget, because it was like the very first thing watching the documentary. I gotta ask him about this. They introduced you as someone that they called El Kukui. Why did they call you El Kukui?
When I was a patrol deputy, I'd been out there for a few years. We went out on a prowler call, and we were the backup unit, so we went there second. The handling unit was a friend of mine, but he sent his trainee. His trainee was a guy that had just been promoted to sergeant, but took off his stripes because he hadn't been in patrol a while. He says, I want to get back into this patrol stuff before I'm telling the guys what to do. So he went around one end of the apartment, and when he was coming around to meet me, I got behind some bushes. And when he got close, I jumped out and screamed, and I grabbed his hands because I knew he'd go for his gun right away. So I screamed and grabbed his guns. He's shitting his pants, and he screamed, and he started backing up. And then after we all had a good laugh, he says, all I could think of was, the Kukui got me. Obviously he was a Latino. The Kukui got me. He started calling me Kukui, and pretty soon, before you know it, even the gang members on the streets, because where I worked in East LA, it was a barrio, and the kids from the barrio were calling me the Kukui. Don't let the Kukui get you. So that name stuck with me all these years. Even though I'm retired, I see old guys. Hey, there's a Kukui. What's up, Kukui? And my Anglo friends would call me Kukui.
Kukui. That's a badass nickname to get, especially when you start getting like the gang members and all, like everybody to buy in.
Yeah. I was a Kukui. It made me almost, and then because of my background in life, in true life, because a cop took me home when I was 17 years old and told my parents, sign for him to get off the streets or he'll end up dead or in prison. And that cop actually saved my life because my parents signed for me. I went in the Army, ended up in Vietnam. I come back. I have a new appreciation on life. I want to give back what that cop gave to me. I wanted to go to college. And I knew I was mature because when I sent for my high school transcripts, I was embarrassed because I thought D stood for damn good, at that time. But they let me in because I was a Vietnam vet. And I just wanted that cop that took me home actually saved my life. So I wanted to do that for kids out on the streets and anybody I could. And I knew the streets because I would stand out there on the corner, so the sky is blue. I said, where you from? Donde? I could hang with the best of them. Well, now I'm dealing with gang members out there. And now just like them, just like a Flaco and also, grumpy, little grumpy, I've got a nickname. I'm the Kukui. What's up, Kukui? You tell me, Veneno, what's up? And I'd even give some guy, there was one guy, I can't remember his real name, but he had his teeth knocked out. He had front teeth. And I said, ¿Sabes qué? You got a new placa. And he said, what's that? I said, TW. And he said, TW. I said, yeah, Toothless Wonder. That's you, brother. TW. And so he was all proud. Hey, I'm TW, hey. So it was good. My past helped me out.
I know growing up in a police family, or my dad, I got to meet all kinds of police officers, and that you had some that were like super strict, and you can't get away with nothing, and then some that were also super strict, but they remember what it was like when they were kids or whatever. So they kind of like, nah, I'm not gonna put you in for like this little pendejada. Like I'm gonna, let it slide, but at the same time, not gonna ruin. You have a choice. Like, and so that's really cool that you did that, and or that guy did that for you, which in later in life it turned out, and all kinds of like good things. With the other thing, El Kukui, some would say, some compare El Kukui, for people that don't know what El Kukui is, they compare it to the boogeyman. But
yes,
I would say, growing up Hispanic, growing up Mexican, I would say El Kukui is worse than the boogeyman, because El Kukui comes at daytime or nighttime. It don't matter what time it is. I thought,
there were two things you didn't want to mess with. You didn't want to mess with the Kukui, and you didn't want to fuck with the Llorona. The Llorona was terror. And give me some tequila. Hey, one tequila and I'll start seeing her. 2 tequilas, 3 tequila, I'll start dancing with her.
Oh, La Llorona, man. I don't know. Every bridge, every city has a bridge where La Llorona exists.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there was one. I remember there was this one. So I'm from Eagle Pass. That's my hometown. Live in San Antonio.
Eagle Pass?
Eagle Pass, Texas. So it's a small border town. But I came to college in San Antonio, stayed here, but I would drive through Uvalde, which right now we know Uvalde or Uvalde because of what happened. Yeah.
Sure.
So, Uvalde obviously is for people to know, it's in the middle between San Antonio and Eagle Pass. But there's a bridge, and I think it's right before you get to Uvalde from Eagle Pass. And everybody, La Llorona right there. You don't stop on the bridge, don't stop. Things get weird. And it just happens to be like also the most darkest place between Eagle Pass and Uvalde. And I never bought into this stuff. Like I grew up with listening to La Llorona, and I got scared. And then Kukui, I think the Kukui still haunts me. Like I always close the closet door because of a Kukui. Now I'm gonna have to close the closet door in case Gilbert's there. El Kukui, the real Kukui. No.
Now I don't want to interrupt you, but I got to say, what a good wife I had. Right now I was busy. I texted her while I was talking to you because the first bottle was empty. So I texted her. I said, "Could you bring me another bottle?" And so I am now sporting a bottle of Joel Gott. Same thing, Cabernet Sauvignon. This one's also a California wine up in the same wine country area. It's very good. And let me see. It's also a two. What a lucky guy I am.
It's also a two. Yeah. And you know what? The cool thing of that was like the seamless handoff, because never did she come in screen or anything like that.
Oh, no, she won't come on screen. It took almost an act of Congress. In the documentary, my wife is in the documentary. She did not want to do it at all. She's an introvert. I call her affectionately Sister Mary Clarence. She's the nice one, the religious one. You see the old cartoons, the angel over here saying, "No, don't do it, don't do it." I'm the devil on this side saying, "Do it, do it, do it, do it." Right now, when you were talking to me and I finished that first bottle, I texted her real quick. She was in the other room. I said, "Could you please get me another bottle of wine?" She brought it in. She won't go on camera. She did not want to do the documentary. And I asked her, I said, "Dear, I can't force you to be in the documentary. I'm asking you, because just think of the good it'll be for other wives of other cops. They'll be able to see this, what you went through, and it'll be able to help them." Well, she did it. And I've had so many people come up and tell me, "Hey, she stole the show." She was honest. It was touching. She was sincere. And so we've been, when I came out of the Army, I had three goals: one to go to college, one to become a cop. The third one was to hook up with my ex-girlfriend that dumped me when I was in Vietnam. She gave me a Dear John, and man, my corazón was broke. I mean, here I am fighting over there, nothing, and now she's going out with some other chango over here. That was terrible. So when I got out of the Army, that third goal was to get hooked back up with my ex-girlfriend, get her eaten out of the palm of my hand so I could dump her ass like she dumped mine. I wanted revenge. Revenge was going to be mine, brother. And I know that upsets your female listeners out there, but no me importa. I wanted to get even with her. I got out.
They get revenge on us all the time. Let's get one on them.
So I got out in June of 70. By September 70, I had her eaten out of the palm of my hand. The day after Christmas, 1970, boom, yeah, we got married. And we just celebrated. We had our 51st wedding anniversary this last December.
Oh, congrats. So, cheers.
It's all on her, brother. She's the glue that has kept this family together. She's always been a stay-at-home mom. Because of that, we ain't had shit, but we live comfortably. We're happy. And she's the glue that keeps everything together. So 51 years, she brought me a bottle of wine right now. And I'm just fortunate. I'm lucky to have her.
I must have missed it. So did you get revenge, or was she your ex?
No, she was my ex.
Oh,
2 out of 3. I got a cop. I went to college. And I keep reminding her, hey, I'm still working on number 3, baby. It's not too late.
Hey, it might be coming.
That's right. I go do a lot of public speaking now, and I was speaking in Vegas in May. Beginning of May, I was in Las Vegas, and it was a 45-minute talk, and it was for I think A&E or something. I think they were the sponsors of this whole thing. It was a big deal. Over 5,000 people attending the conference. So I got up there and spoke for 45 minutes. And so I said, hey, you want to hear what I said? Here it is. And so I put it on TV, and she listened to it. And she complained, well, how come you always got to see bad things about me? Why do you got to? I said, dear, it's entertainment. It's just funny to keep their attention. It's not stuff that I mean. Come on. And because I said in there, you stop thinking about it. 51 years. If I'd have killed her that first year of marriage, I'd already been out of the joint.
Hey, or vice versa, man. We gotta get I know we give our women a lot of grief, so if they don't kill us, we must be doing something right.
Yeah, that's right.
Which goes into this true crime stuff. I hear more and more of all these women listening to a show called Snap, where it's like women killing their husbands.
Yeah, when my son out, my wife's mother, once my wife's father died, she moved in with us. We brought her here to live with us she was here about 6 years before she passed. And her and my wife would watch Snapped all the time. And I'd sit there and remind him, I said, you go ahead and think of ways. But look at this. Snap, they always get caught.
They always get caught.
None of them go free. You're going to suffer more than I am because you kill me. Hey, my problems are over with. But now you got to live with the rest of it. So, and she doesn't know how to use a gun, nor do I want her to learn how to use a gun. Shit,
I think I'm more nervous to the ones that would watch Hallmark, which is my wife. That's what she does. She watches the Hallmarks. I'm like, she's plotting how to get rid of me for sure. Okay, so going back to your wife being in a documentary, I think that's definitely one of the things that captured my attention because, obviously this is close to home in the fact with my dad being a police officer, but never did he have to go through like a serial killer kind of thing, in a small town. And I guess border town, it has its dangers, it being a border town. But in a small town, everybody knew you. So I couldn't get away with anything. Like whatever I did, whether if it was good or bad, my dad already knew about it because people knew him. So what always scared me was like, how did we not even think about shit? They know my dad's a police officer. He's captured people, he's put people away, or he's given, even at the very least, given somebody a ticket, then probably made them angry, ruined their day or whatever. Being a small town, they clearly have to know where we live and who we are, but never once did I really worry about like a lot of things like that until I started getting older. But for you guys, LA, it's huge, but at the same time, there's a lot. So there's more people of maybe the revenge kind of thing or wanting to get revenge. And then working your case like yours, how does your family deal with stuff like that? Like knowing, or how do you even deal with knowing, hey, my family, do they know where I live? Are they going to come after my family or anything like that? Is that even a kind of thing you think about?
No, because I tried to treat even the worst of the worst murder suspects the way I'd like to be treated if I were in their shoes. And I think I was humble enough then, and I tell every cop that wants to become a cop or that wants to go to homicide bureau or even thinking about becoming a cop, one of the first things you have to learn is never forget where you came from, because that's important in your life. Treat people the way you'd like to be treated. Have the understanding that everybody does something for a reason. I don't care if it's rape. I don't care if it's murder. I don't care if it's molestation. They do it for a reason. Don't condone it. Just understand it. And if you do that, it makes it a lot easier to do the job. Having said that, then what I try to do, because of the nature, out of 38 years in law enforcement, 26 of those years were spent working homicide bureau. And the nature of the business is it's a very confidential job. So I can't talk about what's going on in this case today because who knows when. A small world. I told you, I think I mentioned, I was just back in Chicago a couple of weeks ago talking for these guys. And one guy comes up and he remembers he met my daughter when he was out here from Chicago because some Chicago cop went to high school with my daughter before he moved back to Chicago. And so they came out here, contacted her. Hey, can you get somebody show us around, show us a little bit. They were out here for a Chicago Bears game. And so got him to one of the substations, got him some shirts, told him what restaurant, called him my buddy, hey, get him over here. Let's take care of these people. Well, it's a very small world. So if I come home and start talking about one of my murders and my daughter or my son talks to somebody that they went to high school with that is now living in New York, well, they've got phones, they come back and forth. And before you know it, there's shit all over the place. So everything was very confidential. So I kept work and family separated because I never forgot where I came from. I was not hesitant to go to the, you go to the Mexican party sometimes with the familia and you know how they turn. People get all borracho, they get loose. And so you got to watch, but you never forget where you came from. Those are my roots. Okay, well, let's go back there and have some fun. Today, I'm not a cop. Today, I'm a family man. I'm a friend. And I don't do anything in violation of the law. And if most of the time I have a designated driver. And thank God, that's the way it is all the time now. But before then, I was very, very fortunate. I don't condone any of that stuff. I just understand it. But that's how I kept things separate from my family. When I had a long talk with my son, he was in his late teens, early 20s. And we had it was early 20s. We had a man-to-man talk. And he said, well, Dad, you never told me anything about what you were doing, what was going on. And I had to explain it, son, I couldn't. This is why I can't talk to you about this stuff. They didn't know. So I was able to keep work and family separate. And that's the way it had to be. And so it worked out for me. And fortunately, I had a strong wife to keep everything else together.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. I know my mom kept them in line for sure. And it's true. I don't think I've ever really talked to my dad about his cases. I don't think he ever even told us anything. And again, small town, so nothing like LA. But
yeah, it really didn't matter. I never talked. My kids, I was in Vietnam and I was in some heavy, combat stuff. I've never talked about Vietnam to my kids, and I never talked about police work to my kids. There was just nothing to talk about. And then earlier this year, February this year, I met up in Arizona I was there to speak in Arizona, and one of my pilots who I've been looking for years, we found each other on Facebook, and it'd been 53 years since I seen him. And I love the man, I respected him, and we hooked up in Phoenix, Arizona. A friend of my son's who had gone to school with him here, gone on to college, was now the director of news for the NBC affiliate in Phoenix. And they reached out, hey, can we film this? This is big time stuff, knowing that you're meeting your old pilot. And so I got to meet my pilot. And over 53 years, they were there. When we met, we hugged. I cried like a baby. It was very, very, and he did too. It was very, very touching. But it was the first time they'd ever seen anything like this. They don't know about what kind of combat missions we were flying and what we did. We were lucky. Pray that you just made it back alive, back to the airbase, much less make it back home to see the family again.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, one of my pilots that I flew with in Vietnam, turns out we just found out a few years ago, he lives in the same city I'm living in now. And we bumped into each other by accident. And I introduced him to my family, and there he is crying, and we're crying together. And he said, Mrs. Carrillo, he said, I want you to understand. He says, these are tears, not only of joy, but my heart, because we didn't know if we were going to make it back home alive, much less to have the ability to come back and see each other and meet our families. I never thought this day would come. And so here we are. So I just didn't, I kept everything away from my family, all the bad stuff.
I don't know if I know my dad loved his job, he everything. I don't think he lived and breathed being a police officer. But yeah, he never really. But I don't know if I also wanted to ask those kind of questions. I think when he came home, he was just dad.
That's all I was. The only thing I don't know if you have any sisters, but my daughters learned when they became of age and they started going out. They stopped telling people who their dad was, because as soon as they'd meet other guys, they'd find out who their dad was. Other cops would sit there and say, "Oh, see you later." They wanted nothing to do with my daughter because everybody knew the Kukui.
Yeah,
and so they didn't want to do it. And a very good friend of mine, and he lost his life. He got murdered on the job. He was a boxer, and I used to be a ring announcer for the department. And I come home from a murder one night. It's about 2 a.m. I drive up, and he's sitting out in front of my house with my daughter in the car. And she was an adult, she was in her 20s already. And they'd been out on the date. They're out there talking. And I didn't even look at them. I didn't want to say hi. I didn't want to I don't want them to know. It's like I just ignore them. And I walked in the house. I said goodnight. About 2 weeks later, I ran into the kid. And he comes and he says, "Hey, Gil," he said, "I'm so sorry. Man, I didn't know that was your daughter." And I said, "Hey, Jerry, she's an adult. You're an adult. You guys make your own decision. You don't have to apologize to me. I just went in. I didn't want to bother you guys. You do what you got to do." And then he ended up getting killed in the line of duty. So that's just the way things were.
Yeah. No, that's
so they stopped telling people that their dad was a cop.
Well, I did both of them. I did where I avoided saying my last name because then I was like, "Oh, you're his son. You're so and so's son." And my dad doesn't like social media, so that's why I don't say his name. But yeah, I would never say my last name in certain cases because of that. But then if I was in kind of trouble, I would say, that's when I'm like, "Hey, my dad's so and so." They're like, "Okay." Not that I was doing anything stupid, really illegal.
Yeah.
It never came down to it.
I know. My kids knew. They didn't want to bother the cops by using the name, because I told them, I ain't going to get you out of trouble. You got in, you get yourself out. And I can remember one of my kids used my name, and I heard about it, because they courtesy call. "Hey, this is what happened. This is what's going on. This is your daughter." And I said, "All right." And I had another call for some guy had stopped one of my daughters for speeding. And so they had the desk call up mine. And I was out on a murder scene. They're saying, "Hey, Gil, got a cop, got your daughter stopped for speeding. You want him to write her a ticket or no?" And then I got pissed off. I said, "You tell that no balls piece of shit, do what he has to do. That's what he gets paid to do. I'm busy right now." Because I know it. If I say write her a ticket, well, he's going to write her a ticket. If I say don't write her a ticket, he's going to tell her, "I was going to write her a ticket, but Gil Carrillo said don't."
Oh,
I said,
yeah, that's the worst.
Have the balls to do what you got to do, and don't bother me with your pendejadas. If you can't make a decision, don't ask me to make your decision for you. Yeah. And I was pissed that he even bothered me with it, but they didn't. They on the night of my retirement party, I remember one of my daughters got all pissed off. She got a ticket on the way down there, but she wouldn't tell them about me. She wouldn't tell them. And then, fortunately, my compa was there, and he worked the station where she got the ticket at, and he says, "We'll get it taken care of. Not to worry." But how they did it, I have no idea. I want to know part of it. We'll look into it, is what he said. We'll look into it. But I wouldn't get my kids out for any problems like that. Yeah, you get yourself in, you get yourself out.
Yeah, I think my dad, I always remember my dad said, "You only get one. You only get one. But after that, that's it." And luckily, not till I was older, I didn't have to use the one.
Yeah. Well, I one of my daughters, and she's probably going to hear it. She's working in another room. She can hear what I'm saying right now. But she'd received the ticket, and I kept asking, "Hey, have you taken care of that ticket? Have you taken care of that ticket?" And she had told me, "Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so." Then I happened to walk in her room, and I saw a ticket. I said, "This ticket ain't been taken care of. Come on, let's go." I took her down to the courthouse, and I knew the court clerk back in the back. I knew the people back in traffic. I went back. I said, "Stay out here." So I went back there. I said, "Hey, where's this ticket at? We're here today." And he says, "Oh, okay, not a problem. You only found it." He says, "Oh shit, here it is. It's in this stack. These tickets are going into the computer as a warrant today because they haven't been taken care of." He says, "And your daughter's is right here. You want to pay it right now?" And he says, "Or do you want a continuance on it?" He says, "Your daughter's here. Why don't you just pay it right now?" I said, "No, give her continuance on it." I went back outside and I told her, I said, "Okay, it's taken care of." She says, "Oh, you took care of that?" I said, No. You're going to come back and take care of it. You're going to stand in line like everybody else out here paying traffic tickets. You're not going to cut the line because of me, and I'm not going to take care of it. So you'll come back on your own time, stand in line, and take care of the ticket." That's what I did for you because it was getting ready to go to warrant. So they had to learn. They got to do things on their own.
Yeah. My mom would always say, "Don't do anything that's going to embarrass your dad." So luckily, never got into like crazy trouble. Never even got a ticket in Eagle Pass. And I say that knocking on wood because I don't want to have to be driving down 35 years old now, getting a ticket in Eagle Pass. But yeah, one of the things that oh dang, I forgot what I was going to say now.
Have another drink of beer.
Hey, there you go. A little reminder. No, so I never got on a ticket, but that's what I was. Hey, it worked. I remember. So what I was saying that I've never used my dad's name like for like really crazy things. There was only 2 times, maybe 3, but 2 of them were the same thing. Since it's a border town, I would always cross to Mexico. Either I have family in Mexico. I was Mexican born in Mexico. Dad, U.S. citizen. So I was naturalized as soon as I was born. But anyway, family in Mexico, I would go and visit them, or I would simply just go get my haircut in Mexico. So, but coming back, customs would always give me the hardest time because I do get to say, "Hey, I'm a U.S. citizen." But then when they ask me, "Where were you born?" I was born in Mexico. So that's where it's always like the back and forth. Well, how you're a U.S. citizen and why, and then go into the whole explanation. And like 2 moments, they never believed me, and they're like, "No, you're not. You're like, we need proof. There's more. I don't have any more proof." This was before like needing a passport every time you said, like before you were just U.S. citizen, and then they wave you by, or at the very least showing your ID. So I think I showed my ID. It's like, this is what I have. And I think at the time I was already in college, so here in San Antonio, I was visiting. So, anyways, long story short, it got real bad. They were trying to like get me to the back. I'm like, "Dude, I'm not going to the back with you. I'm a U.S. citizen," and I tried losing my accent, my Mexican accent, getting rid of it, and I think it's not completely gone, but for the most part, it turned into its own weird thing. It's like a Texan accent, it's a Mexican accent, and it's just like George doesn't open his mouth kind of accent.
It's more Texan to me than Mexican.
well, and that's all from really trying to get rid of it, which now I regret. But anyways, going back to that, I even got upset that the guy asking me questions had a Mexican accent. I was like, "Dude, you have a Mexican accent. I don't. I'm just." And I was like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "Where are you from then?" And so, like that was it. I was like, "You're going to the back. We're going." And he's like, "No, we're not." And then I threw my dad's name, and that's when like, "Oh no, I'm sorry. Like we didn't realize it." And all that stuff. And I was like, "Oh man." Like I feel like shitty is like having to get to that point for the reason that I hate that I had to use my dad's name because, whatever, like it's like such a crappy, you know who my dad is kind of thing. It's such a movie star thing to say. But it's but also like I felt like demeaned. I was like, dude, come on, man. Like clearly there's nothing going on, but whatever. That's a whole other thing. And then the second time was a police officer. I don't know if he was like just new to the area or what. He got mad at me for crossing in front of him in a parking lot, crossing in front of him, and he stopped me, even turned on the lights. My dad was sitting inside the restaurant the whole time. Uh, he's like, come over, but like he's like really going in on me, yelling at me, and I'm just like, dude, I was just well, I didn't say dude, I was like, oh, I was taught to say yes or no, sir. And I was like, sir, I was just crossing, and he's like, I think he was trying to say I was jaywalking. I was like, it's not a jaywalking. I'm in a parking lot, sir. Anyways, it got so bad. She was like, I can arrest you right now if you want. I can ticket you and I can arrest you if I wanted to. And I was like, well, go ahead. But before you do, why don't you go talk to my dad? He's inside the restaurant at so and so. And he's like, oh, no. And that was the other time. That's the only two times. And I was like, this so shitty in a way, like doing it.
Well, he shouldn't have cited that. Private property. Can't cite you on private property.
No, yeah, exactly. And I didn't. I told my dad. I went back into the restaurant. We ate, and coming out, I was like, "Hey, Dad, do you know so and so?" I was like, "Nah." And he's like, "Well, this guy was just trying to arrest me or ticket me." And I said, he was like, "Well, you should have let him. You should have let him." And then I would have said, "It's like I was inside the restaurant." It would have been embarrassing. It was like he doesn't know what he's doing. He's like,
yeah, it's private property. Can't cite, can't arrest. For some traffic violations anyway.
But yeah, that's a whole thing with that name stuff. Well, definitely going off the rails. Let's go back to the documentary a little bit.
Let's go back to the documentary then.
So the other thing that I really found really interesting from the documentary was that you kind of made that connection, the shoe connection. And I don't know, maybe DNA in the 80s was not that big.
There was no DNA we had no DNA then. It was two things. The shoe print was a very big item to me. I can tell you today in 2022, still from memory, without equivocation, on January 9, 1985, 1,356 pair model 440 Avias arrived in New York from Taiwan for distribution throughout the U.S., of which 6 pair ended up in the state of California. 1 pair ended up in the city of Los Angeles. And so that footprint became a very important piece of evidence for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't believe even you guys found that out, that there was only one, and the likelihood of 1 pair. I figured LA would have at least 100.
It was a brand new shoe. If had it been a Reebok or a Nike or an Adidas, yes, but it was a brand new shoe. And we sent our criminals up to Oregon to meet Mr. Jerry Stubblefield, who was the Oregon track coach, and he held the patent on the shoe. We learned everything we could about the patent. We sent him up there. Then we put 2 guys on, hey, track this shoe down, and that's how we find it. Plus, it was easier. It was a black pair. There weren't many black pairs out there like that. And so that's how we were able to track it down. And just to show that leave nothing, no rock unturned. If you look everything you can, you put everything in. And back then we didn't have DNA. And back then fingerprints weren't automated like they are today. There was a lot of things that weren't there. And it just relied on other means, hard work. I remember when I pulled 2 guys were on their day off, 2 homicide investigators on their day off, and they were out golfing. And I said, time to come back to work. We need you right now. And they weren't happy. So what he wants to do, I said, find his footprint. Find the shoe that goes with his footprint. And they said, where do we start? I said, I don't give a shit. Start at the Orange County border and work your way west through LA County. This is what we need to find right now. And so they did. They found it. They did good work. That guy was later described as the intrepid John Yarbrough. He took care of all our evidence. And I told one of my friends, because John was a brainiac. And I said, watch this. I'm going to tell John that his name will go down in history because in closing arguments, the DA said the intrepid John. And as soon as I tell him that, he's going to look up the word intrepid, see what's going on. So I came back and I said, hey, you just made your name forever in the books. I mean, he said it in closing argument. And I walked out and we turned around and looking at it. And he's got the dictionary out, looking up intrepid. What did it mean? You know, so we knew it was important to him. He was good at what he did. Yeah, he was good at what he did. And he was very, very instrumental in helping us keep track of all of our evidence.
Well, and I probably should have said, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the documentary, watch it. But the reason that stuck with me and was because at first nobody believed you. And it's like, or nobody wanted to give you the time of day to like that theory or to give that theory a time of day. You know,
Sure.
I was like, it's too much. But I was like, my mind went to like, dang, do they not believe him because he's brown, or is it like, or is it just too far fetched, or where is it? Where are we sitting out here? Like, did you get in my? So, real question is like, and I told you, too hard, too fast. We're gonna ask the questions that try not to ask somebody else.
You ask the hard questions, I'll give you the real answers from my heart.
Yeah.
Whether it's speculation, true or not, there were 3 reasons why. Number 1, I was young and I had only been there 4 years. My first 7 years there, I think I was the youngest guy in Homicide Bureau. It took an average of 15 years, it still does today, to get the Sheriff's Homicide Bureau. I was there in 9.5 years. So, number 1, I was young. Number 2, nobody in criminal history had ever, and to this day, still hasn't been documented doing the things that I was alleging Richard was doing. And the reason it hasn't been replicated or copied is because we kept a lot of the kiddie stuff out of the news. So they're not aware of it. And then number 3, part of it was that brown thing. You know, there weren't that many Hispanics in the Bureau. And when you stop to think about it, we just celebrated our 100-year anniversary of Sheriff's Homicide Bureau last month. And in 2004, I was the first lieutenant, first man above the rank of sergeant to ever work Sheriff's Homicide Bureau. And so somebody's going to try and convince me there was never a Latino worthy enough. And so I've got to believe that under, and I've never thought of that because I've been asked the question before in police work. I never looked at white partners, black partners, Mexican partners, Asian partners. There was no color. That was my partner. And everybody's the same. But when you look at the background now, when I look at it historically, there had to be, hey, maybe this Latino is just young punk trying to make a name for himself. But it turned out that I was right. And so that blew out the brown theory, and it blew out the young theory. It blew out all their theory, why. And I turned out to be right. And that's and the director of the documentary is quoted. I've read quotes from him in different magazines where he said, let's make no doubt about it. This documentary was highlighted. Gil Carrillo was highlighted because it was him that came up with the idea, him that came up with the theory, him that didn't give up, and him that persevered and was right. And when the documentary aired, when I saw it, it's the first time I ever heard my partner, Frank Salerno, say, who I have nothing but respect and admiration for. He was the guru. He was the leader. He was great. It's the first time I ever heard him say where he said, you know what? Hey, Gil was right. Never told me that. Never said anything like that. It's the first time I heard it. That to me was a victory.
And, I asked that question not to make it, of course I'm tired of Hispanics, Latinos, whatever, Chicano, whatever anybody, Mexican Americans, whatever you want to call yourself. I'm tired of the community just pulling pulling ourselves back down. Like we know that shit. We know like as soon as you're being somebody's like, ah, ¿quién te crees? Or oh, ahora te crees mucho. It's like, who are you? Or now you think you're the big shot. It's like I'm tired of like pulling ourselves back down. So yes, my biggest my goal here is like to broaden all kinds of perspectives. I have talked to a whole bunch of people on here, been lucky to. But my biggest thing also from that, aside from that, is to bring the brown community back up. To be one of the, instead of bringing us back down, bring them back up. So I think that's why when I saw that, that's a question. Not because I feel like, oh, it is because we're brown. No, it's not just, but it's a thought. It's like, is it that? I don't know. It could be, but there's no way I can just say that. And I'm thinking maybe there's other people saying that on the couch watching. It's like, oh, it's because he's brown. So I wanted to hear it from you. Like I was like, maybe I'm wrong.
No, and I don't think that was just an underlying theory. Today, to this day, there is no. I look at a homicide investigator today, and I don't give a shit what color they are. You're either good, or you're the greatest, or you're just, I guess I want to say it was Leo DeRocher, the old baseball manager and coach, was quoted as saying one time, I don't want to say quote because I'm not sure, I think it was Leo DeRocher, when asked by a news reporter, what do you think of these rookies? What do your baseball team out there right now? And he said, well, look at that guy over there. He's 23 years old. He says, in 3 years, he's going to be great. See that rookie over there? He's 23 years old. In 3 years, he's going to be 26. And that's about all I can say. So those people up there, I don't look at them in versions of color, white, brown, black, or anything. Are you good? Are you not good? I can understand why people didn't believe in me, because nobody in criminal history had ever been documented doing the things that I was alleging. And so it didn't bother me that they thought that. It bothered me when I heard some of them were calling me names behind my back, young punk trying to make a name for himself. Yeah. And just knowing that the leaders that were not willing to accept, none of them were Latinos, and I'm not siding with Latinos. I'm just saying that's the way it was. Things are different today. Things are much different today than they were when I was there. And in representation of ethnicity, everything. I still believe in the Homicide Bureau. I understand why they didn't believe in me at the time. It would have been tough. If I'd have been one of my best friends, a guy named Ray Verdugo, who, when I was young and impressionable, I asked the lieutenant, put me with him. I wanted him to polish me up. And we're still the best of friends today. We go out to lunch. He confessed to me. He says, Gil, in the beginning, he says, I didn't believe in you. I really didn't. But you proved all of us wrong. But Ray never badmouthed me either. It was a tough pill to swallow when I was alleging. And one of the guys that did believe in me, one of my best friends, and I was his best man at 2 out of 3 of his marriages, Don Garcia. He's the guy that broke me in an homicide. He believed in me. He sat in my motorhome and listened to radio calls coming out and strategized. He's a great guy. So a few guys believed in me, but most didn't. And it was easy to be a non-believer. But today things are entirely different. I still believe in the Bureau.
Well, the other thing is that you don't want to be the one that thinks he's right and ends up being wrong versus the guy that's like, I don't know, like goes along with there's still a lot more to find out, and then being like, oh yeah, I guess that was right. So a good thing we checked it out first. Yeah. But the other thing I want to say is like, Gil, if you ever throw out a quote from somebody again, feel free to knowing that this is too hard, too fast, and we don't check facts. So.
Okay, since you don't check facts, I'm in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the longest sex drive in America today.
There you go. That might be true. We don't check them here on Too Hard, Too Fast. Maybe the people that are watching, they might comment and say, meh, but that's for them to do, not for us. We are here on our second beer. It's officially a 2-beer show.
There you go. Told you, it's all getting better.
So the other thing that really interested me was like you said it was that this guy was not doing something that traditionally the other serial killers were doing, like that. Like he didn't have a trend or something, a pattern. So I thought that was nuts. But the question for that is like how frustrating or stressful was the feeling that every time you went out to a call, it could have been him or it could have been somebody else. Was there like ever a feeling like we could be missing somebody else is going free because we're still trying to worry about, is this our guy?
It was difficult, and we didn't worry about anybody else's cases. We worried about ours. I worked up there in a bureau where there was probably at that time about 90 homicide investigators working. I didn't care about anybody else's cases. I only worried about my cases. And so you're worried, is this one connected to the last one? Is this one isn't? And so you have to wait sometimes. If you saw the shoe print, boom. And a lot of the surviving victims all had the same physical description: tall, thin, light-skinned, Hispanic or Caucasian, disheveled hair, stained gap teeth, pungent odor. And so you had the same things going around. It's just that it was hard because his only consistency was his inconsistency. He sometimes killed with a knife, sometimes used a gun, sometimes blunt force trauma, sometimes manual strangulation, sometimes ligature strangulation, a machete. He did it all. And so it was tough. So you'd look for little things. And when you go to a crime scene, everything becomes very scientific, and you look at it at that time very closely. And I was just watching one of these programs that my wife watches all the time, and it was like 48 Hours or one of those programs. And the new detective was going in there. She'd only been a homicide detective for 6 months, and she says the first thing she noticed was things didn't look right in the garage. And so she went on in, and then she went in the house, and then she saw stairs, and she saw something that looked messed up down the bottom of the stairs. So she went up the stairs, and then she looked in the bedroom, and she could see the crack of the door. There's a victim in there, and he's laying down, and she could see his feet. And so she went inside. Then she saw the blood and everything inside. And I'm sitting there saying, okay. And I watch these programs because I like to stay sharp, even though I'm retired. But I sit there and I stopped, I paused it. I said, okay, number one, a seasoned homicide investigator would have said something wrong right there in the garage. Let's get the crime lab out here to clear a path for us. Let's find out. Let's let them do their job first. Then we can go in, because every time you walk from the outside into a crime scene, you take something from the outside in. And every time you walk inside and you walk out, you take something from the inside out. So let them clear a path. She never should have gone past this point to that point to get up there to that point, because she's screwing up. She's contaminating the crime scene. And so I see these things. And so you have to be very cautious of how you work and what you do. And that's all you can do. Little things that make a big difference.
How quickly were you able to kind of like tell, like, okay, this guy's not our guy in that crime? Like if you were out called to a crime scene, how quickly were you able to determine, no, this is not our guy, this is not, and then move on?
Once we got involved in the case, once I got involved in the case, because what happened was I got the first one March 17th of 85. Then somebody else got the call on March 29th, and they went out, they handled a separate case. I didn't know about it initially. Then they told me about it, and that's the first time I saw the shoe print. Then he hit again in May in another city, a contract city, Monterey Park, and he went out there. And so during this time, I'm looking at physical and suspect descriptions, and they sound the same, but there wasn't evidence March the 17th, he killed Dale Okazaki and shot Maria Hernandez, 22 caliber weapon. 40 minutes later, he had no sex, but 40 minutes later, in the city of Monterey Park, he shot a lady, Silent Yu, 22 caliber. But the bullets were so distorted, we couldn't tell if it was the same gun or not. So those cases are often physical descriptions. From Maria Hernandez to Silent Yu, they're generally the same. We also had an attempted child abduction in Pico, and same physical description. Then I found out we had a 5-year-old that was abducted off a bus bench, same physical description. And so you're looking at these things and they're all adding up, but you don't know. There wasn't anything solid, no real physical evidence that was there. I owe everything, my knowledge, the work in the case, from a professor that I took at Cal State LA, a guy by the retired FBI agent by the name of Robert Morneau. He was great. He was a great instructor. He used humor as his vehicle to get his points across. And I took 2 semesters of advanced criminal investigation pertaining to sex crimes. And he let me see things that I never would have seen before. And he gave me the knowledge to work the case. So when I saw all these things going on, that's what led me to believe this is the same guy doing it. And that's what the other guys were saying. You're full of shit. You know, how you got no physical evidence. You got this, you got that, you got speculation, you got circumstantial evidence. And I knew what it was. But that was because of the education that Bob Morneau gave me.
So moving forward, well, actually, with what you said, the pungent smell going off, like that people kept telling you the description, and the pungent smell was a thing that was on there. How he was visiting family, like, spoiler alert again if you haven't watched it. The thing is, he was gonna go visit a brother. My thought when because I think the pungent smell thing was also part of the Netflix documentary. I thought if he looks a certain way, smells a certain way, but he's visiting family, he must have been visiting family between that time span, right? Or maybe he wasn't, but
in April, he was back in El Paso. We know that. The month of April, we had nothing happen in California, and we knew he was back in El Paso.
How did you guys know he wasn't?
Because we did a workup on him, and he attended a baptism back in El Paso at the time.
Oh,
and we knew that. Now, let me tell you about that pungent odor. Let me ask you, did you ever play sports in high school? Any kind of sports?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't care. Baseball, football, whatever it was, you'd get that smelly shit that you sweat in, and you'd put it in your locker. And then once a week, maybe, you would take it home and have it washed. But when you open that locker, it stunk like shit.
Yeah, the whole locker room stunk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Richard had what we called his kill kit. He wore the same clothes when he went out to hit his victims. And he kept all his clothes in a locker, the kill kit, in a locker at the Greyhound bus depot. So just imagine you getting your sweaty stuff, put in the locker, then putting it on to go out and commit your dirty deeds. That's what he was doing. That was the smelly odor. He had blood on his clothes. It stunk. He had sweat on his clothes. It stunk. There's the pungent odor. I get so many questions around the world. Did he really smell like a goat? Did he smell terrible? What was his smell like? When I interviewed him, he didn't smell bad at all. Yeah, I didn't notice any. Shit, I probably smelled worse than he did.
Okay, so that answers my question, because I was gonna ask, how does his family not like recognize there's something going on with him? Because he probably was showered. I didn't even think of that he smelled disgusting because he was wearing
exactly the same clothes every time he capered.
But outside of that was normal guy, probably.
Yes,
showered and all that. Okay.
Other probably had foul breath because of his. He probably had foul breath because of his teeth. But even at that, we were sitting across the table from each other, and I didn't notice anything extraordinary.
Yeah, and his yellow teeth or whatever could have been smoke or stuff or whatever.
Sure.
But okay. That makes sense. Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, man, if I notice anything off from my brother, I can quickly say, oh, something's not going right with this guy, and I need to see, hey, man, you doing good? So I wonder, like, if the parent was not the parent, but the family was covering for him, or just didn't notice anything, or if maybe they were
No,
just deviants as well. I don't know.
no. Well, his brothers were no good. His dad lied for him. His dad testified back in court in trial that he hadn't seen that his son was back there for 6 months, from April for 6 months. You know, his son was there in Texas, and so if he's testifying that his son is there in Texas, well, that makes him ineligible to be back here coming into these murders. And when his dad testified, I went back. I kept the journal of all the newspaper articles that were being published, and I found an article in there after his dad testified that there was a reporter that talked to his dad the day after his arrest, and his dad said, "I haven't seen him in 6 months." So he testified over here that he'd been back there for 6 months, but yet he told the reporter the day after his arrest that he hadn't seen his son in 6 months. I contacted El Paso newspaper, and they said, "Oh shit, he's not working for us anymore. He went to Miami." I called Miami and I called information. I said, "Give me the two biggest papers you got." They gave me one. I called it up. I said, "Please don't hang up on me. I'm not nuts. I'm a detective. I'm looking for this reporter." They said, "Oh yeah, you want to talk to him? He's here right now." Put him on a phone. I said, "Hey, do you remember talking to his dad?" He says, "Oh sure, I'll never forget it." I said, "You ready for a vacation in LA? We'll fly you out here. Keep you over here for a week or so." And so he came out and testified, blew daddy right out of the water, showed the article, testified to it, and just showed the dad was lying for him.
Dang. Oh, I wrote down here, Gil was stabbed. When were you stabbed?
I was a kid in junior high school at a fight. And
Oh, it
some guy
wasn't.
came and
It
stabbed me.
wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't as a cop. I was
Okay.
shot at by cops when I was a cop. I was shot at by a cop, and I was shot at by bad guys. But I was a kid. I was in junior high school, and I got stabbed right in my ass at a gang fight.
Dang. And is that when
And I was, and to be honest, I was more afraid of my mom kicking my ass because I had a hole in my pants and blood all over them.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I've been in many fights when I was a kid, and the first thought was, if I get my ass kicked, it's not the worst thing, because then I'm gonna get my ass kicked by my mom when I show up at home. And that was the worst
Yeah,
part.
my mom was the tough one. That was back in the day where you got in trouble with school, and it wasn't the school's fault; it was your fault. You're not going. They don't lie. No, you're going to pay. Today, anything happens to kids, it's always the school's fault. But not in my family. Not with my kids. They knew. No, we're going to find out. You know, we'll see what's going on. My son, he's 44 years old now, and we laugh. When he was in high school, he cut class because he didn't want to. I don't know. He didn't do his homework or didn't want to see the teacher. He cut one class. But then the pendejo wasn't sharp enough. He didn't know how he was going to get back into class. So he went 4 days without it. Then I got called from the school, and I went down and talked to the counselor, and I brought him in. They brought him in. I said, "Okay, Governor, explain this one." And I told the counselor, I said, "Hey, he may have won the day, but Dad's going to win the battle. You and I are going to get to make sure this guy flies right." And so it did. I don't. It's not their fault. It's my fault. You know, or your fault, son. In this case, pendejo, you didn't know how to do it.
I agree 100% with, it's definitely different. It's always, what did you guys do? It was always not the school's fault. It was like home fault. And I think, I want to say has to be definitely a mixture of fault with both, but I definitely don't think it's always the school fault as it is now. Like, it's always the school's fault. I don't agree with that.
I attended a conference once when I was working in gangs, and it was at a college. It was at Cal State LA, as a matter of fact. And I attended it, and I listened to some doctor get up there and say, And this is in a primarily Latino neighborhood, all Hispanics. And Cal State, bunch of Mexicans going there. So this is a lot of cops at this conference. And he's saying that the problems in the Latino neighborhoods they are what they eat. Starches, all the starches they eat, beans and papas and rice and tortillas, creates their problems. I got up and I walked out. I said, this Bob also doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. It's the parents that are responsible for what their kids do. Let's start putting blame where blame belies. Stop hearing, oh, not my mijo. Toma, yeah, it is your mijo that's bad. And if you just learn how to talk to them, and they're also protective, my mijo wouldn't do this. No, it's time to stand up and say, hey, yeah, my mijo's no good. And why is he no good? Because we failed him. Society didn't fail him. We failed him. That's what they got to do.
Well, I'll tell you this, Gil. I never told you my day job. My day job, I'm actually a special education teacher. So I definitely
thank you for what you do.
No, of course, but I see it. Yeah, that's why I'm saying. Like, I try not to talk about it too much on here, but I definitely do see that it's more on us, and it's like, no, yeah, sometimes the school does fail, and sometimes the parents do fail, and then sometimes but most of the time we got to figure out how we can fix it together. But a lot of the time, when it's just the parent thing, you can see why, and it's like they come with, it's a lot of like excuses. And I was like, look, sure. I want to help you. Like, and here's my thing, like just how you said, like, you understand when you were a police officer and you were doing your job, you tried to understand, like, hey, I was there once, and I want to give you the benefit of the doubt and give you an opportunity, not just completely destroy your life. Same with the school, like, hey, if you get in trouble, and not so much me right now, being a special education teacher, but there's certain stuff you can do and be like, hey, I don't want to get you in trouble because I know what that would lead to. So how do we fix it together before it gets to that point? And sometimes you just can't, like, because there's no help from the parents, and I'm just like, what happened to the world where it's like, yes, we're here with you?
The only thing I fault schools for, and it's not the teachers, it's the administration, because they try to keep problems in-house, because to make them public or make them aware of the parents, then it reflects on them. Hey, maybe we're doing our shortcut. So they try to keep things in-house. They fail to notify. We don't want to get law enforcement notified because, it may look bad. They don't want to create a big barullo over something so simple that we can take care of right here. That's the only thing I blame schools for. And I don't care what kind of school it is, whether it be special ed, regular ed, because I've helped kids in special ed that special ed teachers have taken advantage of them and have paid the price for it. They're in custody, they've gone. Doesn't mean all special ed teachers are like that, but something that could have been identified because, and I don't want to bring religion, just like when they had the big scandal with Catholicism, the priests trying to cover up and keep their own in. That's the only thing I blame school districts for, is their failure to make notifications, failure to make everybody aware, because they don't want to create a problem within themselves to make it look like they're not responsible for it. And so that's the only
they're
problem.
A bad school or something.
Sure. That's the only thing I have problem with school district for. I admire teachers. I love them. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. They are working with kids, and the kids are the future of tomorrow. And so we need to do everything we can to help them out.
For sure, man. For sure. One funny story to bring this back into like a little lighter situation. When you were saying about your son skipping, it reminded me about and I've never told this story to anybody. So here we go. Dad, if you're watching, sorry. Okay, and this could be one
Hey,
of those where it's
Dad,
like,
this one's for you. Siéntate, Dad. Siéntate.
siéntate. Cheers, Dad. This is one of those where it's not the school's fault and it's not the parents' fault. It is maybe the friend's fault. And so my friends, I think I felt like I always hung out with like everybody, but my real close group of friends were more of the nerdy friends. Like they were like kind of like we follow the rules kind of stuff. But we saw that in I think we were in 10th grade. We saw people were skipping and leaving campus. And so I was like, oh well, let's do it. It's like the last month of school. So let's skip and let's go. And so one of my friends was like, yeah, we can go to my house and nobody my parents work so we can stay there all day and then come back when the day's over. And we'll play video games. So it's a day off. That guy that had us that was gonna go to our we were gonna go to his house, he backs out last minute. And I was like, oh, so now we have nowhere to go. And he's like, let's do it anyway. So we leave and then we were walking through like the town and I realized everybody knows me. If anybody sees me here, they're gonna notify my dad, and my dad's gonna know that I'm not in school. So there's no way we can walk the streets and not get caught. So my idea was like, let's walk through the tunnels, and we had like little like tunnels, canales, like that we can walk through. And it's like, well, where do we go to? It's like, let's go to Mexico. We're right here. We're really close. Let's go to Mexico. So we did. We walked all the way underneath as much as we could, like to like nobody see us. And as soon as we got to we got to the bridge, we jumped out and crossed into Mexico and whatever. Now we were free. Nobody in Mexico knows me. And at the time I was like, not even thinking like what could have happened to us in Mexico. But I knew Spanish. You know, I was like, you can't confuse me. I look like I'm from here because I am from here. So no worries of that. We spent the whole day. We bought, we had some cash with us, so we were able to eat. We bought some chips. We bought soda. We hung out on the riverbank of the the Rio Bravo. That's what we call it, like the river that separates the U.S. from Mexico. So we were watching the border patrol just back and forth, and then we realized I think they're going back and forth because they think we're looking to cross. We're like, let's get out of here before we get into some real trouble. Oh man. So that story.
Did you get into trouble?
No, we never got into any kind of trouble. Nobody, like I said, nobody has ever heard this story. This is the first time.
Okay, Dad. It's okay, Dad.
Nobody. Like we didn't get into any trouble. We made it back to school. The only trouble we did run into was one of my friends had to use the restroom and like to go number 2. There was it was a pay to use restroom. Like it was he had to pay a certain amount of pesos to use the restroom, like to even open the door. And he goes in, realizes there's no toilet paper. He had a bag of hot Cheetos with him. And cannot make this up. He dumped the hot Cheetos out and just wiped himself with it. And it's like ever since then, like for the whole rest of the school year, we called him Cheeto just for that.
There you go. That's a good name.
Yeah. That's the only like real trouble that we ran into. But we made it back to school, went home like normal, and that's it. That's that story. But Gil, not to keep you too much longer, I appreciate you. Oh man, we went too hard, too fast for sure for a good while. Half beer.
Yeah.
Cheers. So, two final questions. The first one is what, and this is my wife's question. What truly made you? Because she was watching the documentary with me, and she was like, "What makes somebody want to be a cop?" But I think she was thinking in terms of nowadays, where things are so polarized. But even then, my answer was like, what makes anybody want to be anything? So for you, what made you want to be a police officer?
It was the fact that one deputy sheriff, Alfonso Arias, helped me get off the streets, and all I wanted to do was have the ability to help someone else. He saved my life. I wanted to give back to someone else uh, in my life. I just wanted to help other kids, and that was the incentive. It was an honest job, a job of integrity at that time, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give back.
Perfect. Perfect. And then I know there's a lot of questions still probably for the documentary. I think the documentary definitely answers a lot. So people watch that, support the documentary. I think it's great. The thing that did catch me was like how many murders did Richard Ramirez do before Gil Carrillo got on the job, before they started figuring out. And I think that's not something for us to know right now. And I do appreciate the way it ended, like how you say the names and you pray for them, and
Sure.
I'm maybe misquoting this. Do you pray for him?
Every night when I say prayers, whether I say it, depending on how tired I am, it's prayers at night or prayers first thing in the morning. But I always say in the end, and I pray for the soul, two people. Aside from my friends and everybody else that has gone before me, I mentioned two names, Charlie Manson and Richard Ramirez. And people ask me why. Those are fucking killers. And my only answer is because nobody else is praying for them. And if anybody needs help, they do. And if you believe in the good Lord, and I'm not an angel, and I'm not advocating or I'm not talking religion, but if you believe, he was all forgiving. And so I have no say so on what happens to them. If they're in hell and they're burning and suffering, so be it. It wasn't of my choosing. All I can say is I offer prayers for their soul. I still do. Two worst, and there have been other murders. I don't mention any other murderers that I've convicted, but those are the two worst guys that come to mind that were full of the devil. And when I talked to Richard said, I said, Rich, what you know, I can't. If I tell you that much, Lucifer will kick my ass when I get down there. So I still pray for his soul. And I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed. And I know some of my colleagues that say, why, fuck him. It's just what I got to do. And I'm secure in who I am.
I like that because I'm definitely on the fuck him kind of side, but
Sure.
that's more because I'm seeing it from an outside thing, and it's just like I'm seeing it as like just a citizen. It could be anybody kind of thing.
It doesn't. It really doesn't matter if he's in hell suffering. Fuck him. I like it. That's what he deserves. But I'll still got to pray for his soul. That's just me, and I don't care if anybody disagrees, likes it, dislikes it. Like I said, I'm secure.
I won't say I disagree. I like the idea of it. Like I like it a lot. Like you said, it's not for me. It's not for me to decide what happens to him.
Yeah.
Whether.
Nor do I pray for any of the other guys.
Exactly. But I like the idea of that for you. That's what you do, and I like that. I don't, like I said, this was when I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to talk to Gil Carrillo. I didn't want to talk about, and this whole podcast, we didn't really focus too much on Richard Ramirez. We focused on the outsides around it, and that's what I liked, and that's what I wanted to do. But regardless, it's an interesting story. I am 100% thankful and just in awe that this was even a connection that we were able to make. So I appreciate that, man.
Thank you. One of these days, it's always what those bucket lists. I've always wanted to go to San Antonio. I want to see the river walk. I just want to see what it's like down there. I've been to Dallas a few times, but I want to go and I want to take my wife down to San Antonio and see what it's like.
Well, let's do it, man. Let's do it. You know what? If you can afford California, you can afford San Antonio. Easy.
I ain't moving down there, brother.
No, not saying that. Not saying that. I'm saying if you can just your daily life in California, you're right here, you'll be living like a king.
Hey, as long as they have tortillas, papas, frijoles, and chile, I can live like a king
Oh
anywhere.
man, yo te llevo aquí. We have some good stuff, dude. If you do make it, we'll meet up and we'll have some good drinks, some good food, dude.
Sounds
they make
good.
some good food.
Sounds good.
So I appreciate it, but leaving you with the final question. Do you have a too hard, too fast story? A time where you were too drunk to function, a cautionary tale, words of wisdom, or anything you feel comfortable sharing with us?
I'm going to give you perhaps words of wisdom of an old man. And there's the old story about the baby bull and the daddy bull looking over the top of the hill, and there's a bunch of cows down in the valley. And the baby bull says, "Come on, Dad, let's get down there and fuck a cow." And the daddy bull says, "Hey, let's take our time and fuck all of them." So, from an old man to a young man, I tell you, don't get too hard too fast. Slow down, brother, and spread the wealth along the way. It's a lot more fun. God bless you.
Dude, oh man, you killed it. I don't know if anybody's ever gonna top that. That is perfect. I'm glad you even fucking threw that too hard, too fast in there. That's good.
There
I
you
appreciate
go.
it. Instagram. We didn't even talk about that. Do you still do you want people to?
I'm on Instagram, Real Gil Carrillo. Real Gil Carrillo, and I got one of the little blue things that says I'm the real guy on the end of it. Not to take away from your podcast, but please, any of your listeners, listen to George Lopez, Oh My God Hi podcast, where I'm the co-host. Doing that, we put out once a week. I think we just dropped number 68 the other day. We'll do another one on Sunday. Right now, it's kind of tough. We're doing just like you and I. We're doing Zoom because he's filming out of state. It's a secret movie, secret location. So we're Zooming out of state, but please follow, listen. George is a great guy. I'm going to go see him. He'll be in Vegas in September.
Dang, that's awesome. And fuck taking away from me. This is awesome, man. I'm 1 degree away from George Lopez. That's awesome.
There you go. and if I can be perfectly honest, this has been a fun podcast to do. I've done bunches of them. I'm nobody special, and I've always said that I'm nobody special. So local guys said, "Hey, can you do a podcast?" Sure, I'll do a podcast with you. I'm nobody. I'm no better than anybody else. And so this one has been fun. The way you approached it, the way you drank with me, the way we had fun, the way we left, and you did your homework before you got here. So as many as I've done and what I've done with George, it's a breath of fresh air. Thank you, brother.
No, man, that makes me feel good.
Thank you for the invitation.
No, thanks for doing it. Like I said, even though you keep saying that you're nobody special, I really think you are, man. I really think you really are. And I truly do appreciate that you even came on. I truly appreciate that.
My pleasure.
You're welcome on here as long as you want to come back on. We'll keep in touch. I would love to have you back on. I'm sure we can talk about a whole bunch of things. So I would love to have you
call
back
me
on.
back. You call me back anytime you want. It would be my pleasure and a distinct honor. If I get out to San Antonio, I'd love to look you up. Go have a taco. I want to listen. I love mariachis. listen to mariachis, have a little something, besides coffee to wet our throats.
There you
It'll be
go.
a great time.
We will, and you have my number. You have the podcast number, and you have my real number.
Don't forget to tell your dad I said thank you for his service.
I'll tell him for sure. I'll show him this video.
Thank you.
He'll probably be proud and disappointed at the same time. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, remember, dare to be you, dare to be weird. Bye.
Está loco.